Well, hopefully we'll finish the whole Andrew Huberman saga today. I can't promise anything because if I get too many neurological symptoms from being angry, not angry at him, angry that this whole hit piece was written in the first place because this man is not a criminal. Like, this is not other people's business. Good Lord. Welcome back to Far From Eden. Good to have you here. If you're new, hi. We've been covering Andrew Huberman and this hit piece that was released in New York Magazine, written by Carrie Howley, I believe was her name. And yeah, so far, I mean, he's cheated. They tried to go after Athletic Greens, one of his sponsors, just by saying, oh, it may or may not be as healthy as they say. It may or may not have these actual ingredients. Like, okay. Oh, his lab may or may not be as busy as he says, and he lives 6 hours from it. Like, all right, well, we haven't really said anything. Sorry, my hair is attacking me. Okay, let's continue with this. All right, so where we left off was there's a second woman, and she was having unprotected bedtime fun with him because she thought she was the only one, same as the first woman. So we've got Sarah, the first woman, Eve, the second woman. All right. That's when I lost my mind and got angry, and I was like, okay, we need to stop. She's angry. Why was I angry? Because she's being a 304, but angry at him because she wasn't the only one. It's like, well, you know, if you were married to him, if he had actually said, all right, this is serious, la la la, but that's not where you were. You were pretending. Anyway, as their relationship intensified over the years, he talked often about the family he one day wanted. Quote, our children would be amazing, he said. She asked for book recommendations, and he suggested jokingly, Huberman, Why We Made Babies. I guess that was his book. I'm at the stage of life where I truly want to build a family, he told her. That's a resounding theme for me. How to mesh lives, he said in a voice memo, a fundamental question. Yeah, he's at the stage where he wants to do that, but he didn't say it with her definitively. Just saying. Is it a little shady? Of course it's shady. Of course he knows what she's thinking. But also, like, lady, never mind. A fundamental question, one time she heard him say on Joe Rogan that he had a girlfriend. She texted him to ask about it, and he responded immediately he had a stalker. He said, and so his team had decided to invent a partner for the listening public. I later learned, Eve tells me with characteristic equanimity, that this was not true. In December 2022, Eve noticed that Sarah was looking at her Instagram stories, not commenting or liking, just looking. Impulsively, Eve messaged her. Is there anything you'd rather ask me directly, she said. They set up a call. F you, Andrew, she messaged him. Well, that was awfully disjointed. Okay. Sarah moved out in August 2023, but says she remained in a committed relationship with Huberman. She won't let it go. Like, lady, buy a clue, okay? When a man is serious about you and wants you forever, you'll know. There won't be this, right? But what? They want to be victims, whatever. Okay. A spokesperson for Huberman says they were separated. Of course, she says they're still back together. At Thanksgiving that year, she noticed he was wiggly every time a cell phone came out at the table. Wait, is that the year they're talking about? Sarah moved out in August 2023, and now they're talking about Thanksgiving that year, where she says they're still together and he says they're separated. I don't know what's going on. Trying to avoid, she suspected being photographed. She says she did not leave him until December. According to Sarah, the relationship ended as it had started with a lie. He had been at her place for a couple days and left for his place to prepare for a Zoom call. They planned to go Christmas shopping the next day. Sarah showed up at his house and found him on the couch with another woman. She could see them through the window. If you're going to be a cheater, she advises me later, do not live in a glass house. She thinks she's very clever. Okay. I feel like when it goes boop, 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 boop with facts, we're obviously missing some context, some other information, which makes me not trust it. On January 11th, a woman we'll call Alex began liking all of Sarah's Instagram posts, 7 of them in a minute. She timing. Sarah messaged her, I think you're friends with my ex, Andrew Huberman. Are you one of the women he cheated on me with? Alex is an intense, direct, highly educated woman who lives in New York. She was sleeping with Andrew and she had no idea there had been a girlfriend. Fudge, she said. She did say fudge. I think we should talk. Over the following weeks, Sarah and Alex never stopped texting. She helped me hold my boundary against him, says Sarah. Keep him blocked, she said. You need to let go of the idea of him. You can't trust another woman. She might be saying that, so then she can move on with him. Yeah, and that Sarah chick, I think they were separated, but Sarah kept, again, probably trying to seduce him into a relationship. That's what I see. Instead of texting Andrew, Sarah texted Alex. Sometimes they just talked about their days and not about Andrew at all. Sarah still thought about beautiful Eve, on the other hand. Might be crazy, but they talked some more and brought her into the group chat. Soon there were others. There was Mary, a dreamy, charismatic Texan he had been seeing for years. Her friends called Andrew breadcrumbs, given his tendency to disappear. There was a 5th woman in LA, funny and fast-talking. Alex had been apprehensive. She felt foolish for believing Andrew's lies and worried that the other women would seem foolish, therefore compounding her shame. Foolish women were not, however, what she found. Oh, I see. Like if the other women are dumb, then that also means that I'm in a group of dumb women. You guys, you're probably tearing your hair out by now. Like, what are these women are crazy, and they're not talking to him. They're just talking to each other, getting themselves all worked up. Each of the 5 was assertive and successful and educated and sharp-witted. Of course they were. They were angels. There had been a type, and they were diverse expressions of that type. Yeah, the type is women who give it up. Women who think they're the only ones with a man who has all kinds of options because he's over 6 feet tall, Huberman is 6'1", and he's successful. And women who think that because a man will sleep with them, that he will marry them. Yeah, they had a lot in common. I agree. I can't believe how crazy I thought you were, Mary told Sarah. No one struck anyone else as a stalker. That's so... No, they all decided that they were all awesome. No one had made up a story about a dead baby or torn out hair with chunks in it. I haven't slept with anybody but him for 6 years, Sarah told the group. If it makes you feel any better, Alex joked, according to the CDC, they had all slept with one another. Yeah. And I'm just going to stop and pause and ask you guys, don't forget to hit like. Lola is like basically breakdancing and sneezing or snorting, whatever that is, because it's time for her afternoon treats that she loves very much. So please hit like, because that's the thing here is that I always forget. So I made this thing. If Lola distracts me, then I'll remember to ask. And yes, I will show you her in a moment. Apparently I don't show her enough. I'm like, the last thing that men want to see is another middle-aged woman with a little dog. Like, silly. You with your... She is cute. I'll give her that. Darn it. All right. The women compared time-stamped screenshots of texts assembled therein, an extraordinary record of deception. God. There was a day in Texas when, after Sarah left his hotel, Andrew slept with Mary and texted Eve. They found days in which he would text nearly identical pictures of himself to two of them at the same time. They realized that the day before he had moved in with Sarah in Berkeley, he had slept with Mary, and he had also been with her in December 2023, the weekend before Sarah caught him on the couch with the sixth woman. They realized that on March 21st, 2021, a day of admittedly impressive logistical jujitsu, while Sarah was in Berkeley, Andrew had flown Mary from Texas to LA to stay with him in Topanga. While Mary was there visiting from thousands of miles away, he left her with Costello, that's his dog that he loves very much, and I understand why. It's the only one that loves him back and is loyal. He drove to a coffee shop where he met Eve. They had a serious talk about their relationship. They thought they were in a good place. He wanted to make it work. Phone died, he texted Mary, who was waiting back at the place in Topanga, and later to Eve, thank you for being so next level gorgeous and sexy. Sleep well, beautiful, he texted Sarah. Oh, Lord. The scheduling alone, Alex tells me. I can barely schedule 3 Zooms in a day. I wouldn't brag about that, lady. In the aggregate, Andrew's therapeutic language took on a sinister edge. It was communicating a commitment that was not real, a profound interest in the internality of women that was then used to manipulate them. Does Huberman have vices? Asks an anonymous Reddit poster. That's not credible. I remember him saying, reads the first comment, that he loves croissants. I think that this is ignoring that it's possible that Dr. Huberman is very afraid to make a choice and very reluctant to detach from a female. It's likely that because his mother basically abandoned him, that he is desperately looking for this female attention and female admiration and all of that stuff. Now, it doesn't make it right. Should he have lied? No. Should he have led them to think that they were the only ones? No. But again, I say, well, ladies, if you'd close your legs and actually wait for a real situation, a real relation, not situation, because situationship, like actually wait for the real thing. Actually have an understanding of true values. Then you might not deal with this stuff. But also, regardless of how wrong it is to hurt someone like that, to knowingly lead them on, it's not something that should get you fired. It shouldn't ruin your career. It's your family shouldn't know about it. I'm sorry, I don't agree with the way this is handled. He is not a criminal. He's not a criminal. This is not a crime. You women want it the other way around? You guys want it? I don't think you do. I don't think you want this turned around on you. Notice there was only one that was like, I've only slept with him for 6 years. Well, what about the other ones? I bet they don't have the same story. How many men do they have in their rosters? How many men are in their DMs? You know they've got beta orbiters. They all do. They always have backups. But that's not cheating. Sure. While Huberman has been criticized for having too few women guests on his podcast, he is solicitous and deferential toward those he interviews. In a January 2023 episode, Dr. Sarah Gottfried argues that patriarchal messaging and white supremacy contribute to the deterioration of women's health. And Andrew responds with a story about how his beloved trans mentor, Ben Bars, I don't know his name, and I don't care, had experienced intense suppression/oppression at MIT before transitioning. Psychology is influencing biology, he says with concern, and you're saying these power dynamics are impacting it. In private, he could sometimes seem less concerned about patriarchy. Multiple women recall him saying he preferred the kind of relationship in which the woman had monogamous, but the man was not. He told me, says Mary, that what he wanted was a woman who was submissive, who he could slap in the rear end in public, and who would be crawling on the floor for him when he got home. Okay, a spokesperson for Huberman denies this. I was going to say, that's just her saying it. And furthermore, if he said that to you, you know what you can do? Walk out the door. If he's so bad, then why were you trying to get him to be the one and only? It makes no sense to me. There was a particular way he would respond to a sexy picture. Hi there. A spokesperson for Huberman insisted that he had not been monogamous with Sarah until late 2021, but a recorded conversation he had with Alex suggested that in May of that year, he had led Sarah to believe otherwise. I mean, we've already established this. Why are we, is this all they have? He cheated on women. They thought they were the only ones. They wanted a future. We get it. He's not a criminal. What are we doing? Quote, well, she was under the impression that we were exclusive at that time, he said. Women are not dumb like that, dude, Alex responded. She was under that impression? Then you were giving her that impression. Andrew agreed. That's what I meant. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put it on her. Fair enough. The kind of women to whom Andrew Huberman was attracted, the kind of women who were attracted to him. These were women who had paid attention to what went into their bodies, women who made avoiding toxicity a central focus of their lives. They researched non-hormone disrupting products, avoided sugar, ate organic. They were disgusted by the knowledge that they had sex, bedtime fun with someone who had an untold number of partners. Well, then use protection. I don't know. I'm sorry. Really, let's see your history and see if it's really. I doubt it. I doubt it. I don't believe them. I'm sorry. I don't. All of them wondered how many others there were. When Sarah found Andrew with the other woman, there had been a black pickup truck in the driveway, and she had taken a picture. The women traced the plates, but they hit a dead end and never found her. Oh boy. Tell us about the Dark Triad, he had said to Buss in November on the trip in which he slept with Mary. The Dark Triad consists of 3 personality characteristics, said Buss. So narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Such people feign cooperation, but then cheat on subsequent moves. They view other people as pawns to be manipulated for their own instrumental gains. Those, quote, who are high on Dark Triad traits, he said, tend to be good at the art of seduction. The vast majority of them were men. I doubt that. Women are the ones that seduce. Sorry, Dr. Buss, Mr. Buss, no. Andrew told one of the women that he wasn't a sex addict, he was a love addict. See, he is actually, I think, addicted to the validation and attention of women because of a wound from when he was younger. And I think with all of his inward reflection and everything, I think he's going to understand that at some point. But that's a sidetrack. Addiction, Huberman says, is a progressing narrowing of things that bring you joy. In 2021, in the same month, Sarah first learned of Andrew's cheating. he released an episode with Anna Lemke, chief of the Stanford Addiction Medicine Dual Diagnosis Clinic. Lemke, the author of a book called Dopamine Nation, gave a clear explanation of the dopaminergic, I'm sure there's a way to say that, that's not the way I said it, roots of addiction. He already knows. I was gonna say, the man knows about dopamine. If he's addicted, he's gonna understand it the most, I would say. I don't think, I mean, that's what women are gonna try to put it as. What happens right after I do something that is really pleasurable, she says, and releases a lot of dopamine is, again, my brain is going to immediately compensate by downregulating my own dopamine receptors. And that's that come down, or the hangover, or that after effect, that moment of wanting to do it more. Someone who waits for the feeling to pass, she explained, will re-regulate, go back to baseline. If I keep indulging again and again and again, she said, ultimately, I have so much on the pain side that I've essentially reset my brain to what we call anhedonic or lacking in joy type of state, which is a dopamine deficit state. This is a state in which nothing is enjoyable. Everything sort of pales in comparison to this one drug that I want to keep doing. Just for the record, Andrew said, smiling, Dr. Lemke has diagnosed me outside the clinic in a playful way of being work addicted. You're probably right. Yeah. Lemke laughed. You just happen to be addicted, she said gently, to something that is really socially rewarded. What he failed to understand, he said, was people who ruin their lives with their disease. I like to think I have the compassion, he said, but I don't have the empathy for taking a really good situation and what from the outside looks to be throwing it in the trash. At least 3 ex-girlfriends remained friendly with Huberman. Interesting. He goes deep very quickly, says Keegan Emmett, who dated Andrew from 2010 to 2017 and continues to admire him. He has incredible emotional capacity. A high school girlfriend says both she and he were troubled during their time together, that he was complicated and jealous, but a good person whom she parted with on good terms. Quote, he really wants to get involved emotionally, but then can't quite follow through, says someone he dated on and off between 2006 and 2010. But yeah, I don't think it is, she hesitates. I think he has such a good heart. I agree. I don't think that this means that he's evil. I don't think it means he's bad. I don't think it means any of that. I think he's troubled, and I think he's wounded. That's what I think. And I think these women didn't need to participate in this, and they're trying to be victims, claim victimhood, and they're not. Andrew grew up in Palo Alto just before the dawn of the internet, a lost city. He gives some version of his origin story on the Rick Roll podcast. He repeats it for Tim Ferriss and Peter Attia. I'm butchering these names, I apologize. He tells Time Magazine and Stanford Magazine, take the list of all the things a parent shouldn't do in a divorce, he recently told Christian Bowhunter Cameron Haynes. They did them all. You had, says Wendy Zuckerman, in the bright Aussie accent, a wayward childhood. I think it's very easy for people listening to folks with a bio like yours, says Tim Ferriss. We're just going back and forth. To sort of assume a certain trajectory, right? To assume that it has always come easy. His father and mother agree that after our divorce was an incredibly hard time for Andrew, though they do not agree with some of his characterization of his past. Few parents want to be accused of pure neglect. Yeah, and most parents who get divorced totally they try to say that, oh no, it was better, he was just a child, blah, 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 blah. No, divorce is awful, and I believe that he was neglected. Huberman would not provide the name of the detention center in which he says he was held for a month in high school. Well, good. And that's not shady. In a version of the story Huberman tells on Peter Attia's podcast, he says, "We lost a couple of kids self-deleted while we were there. New York was unable to find an account of this event." Well, they don't even know where, and they're not, oh my Lord. She's trying to make it sound like he's a liar and he's shady in the teeniest, tiniest little ways. Like, I see this, lady. I see what you're doing with this. Andrew attended, his last name is the same as a pew pew, and I don't want to say that, even though I'm sure YouTube will already hate this video just because I'm talking about Dr. Huberman. A high-performing, high-pressure high school. Classmates describe him as always with a skateboard. They remember him as pleasant, sweet, and not particularly academic. He would, says one former classmate, drop in on the half pipe where he was encouraging to other skaters. He needs to go on a Tim Pool show. Oh my God, Tim, get him on your show. Let him talk about this there. Goodness gracious. You guys can skate. Or he was encouraging to other skaters. I mean, he was cool. Individual kid, says another classmate. There was one year he bleached his hair and everyone was like, oh, that guy's cool. It was a wealthy place, the kind of setting where the word au pair comes up frequently, and Andrew did not stand out to his classmates as out of control or unpredictable. They do not recall him getting into street fights, as Andrew claims he did. Never mind. He was, says Andrew's father, a little bit troubled. Yes, but it was not something super serious. Well, you would say that you got divorced and you don't want to admit the truth of what you put your child through, so I'm not going to listen to you. What does seem certain is that in his adolescence, Andrew became a regular consumer of talk therapy. In his adolescence, this is not a bad kid if he's trying to help him. He's trying to be better. In therapy, one learns to tell stories about one's experience. A story one could tell is, I overcame immense odds to be where I am. Another is, the son of a Stanford professor, born at Stanford Hospital, grows up to be Stanford professor. I really don't like this author. I don't like this lady who's writing this. I have never, says Amit, met a man more interested in personal growth. Andrew's relationship to therapy remains intriguing. You can't be serious about personal growth and therapy if you cannot self-reflect and be accountable, right? How committed to personal growth are these women? This is not a bad quality to have. We were at dinner once, says Eve, and he told me something personal, and I suggested he talk to his therapist. He laughed it off like that wasn't ever going to happen. No, he probably laughed at you because you didn't want to even deal with anything that was deeper, right? That was probably what it was, Eve. Almost home here. I can make it. I can make it. Woo! Let's not freak out. Okay, he laughed it off like it was never going to happen. So I asked him if he lied to his therapist. He told me he did all the time. A spokesperson for Huberman denies this. I bet you he thought that was not serious. He's not serious. People high on psychopathy are good at deception, says Buss. I don't know if they're good at self-deception. With repeated listening to the podcast, one discerns a man undergoing in public an effort to understand himself. There are hours of talking about addiction, trauma, dopamine, and fear. Narcissism comes up consistently. One can see attempts to understand and also places where those attempts swerve into self-indulgence. On a recent episode with the Stanford-trained psychiatrist Paul Conti, Andrew and Conti were describing the psychological phenomenon of aggressive drive. Andrew had an example to share. He once canceled an appointment with a Stanford colleague. There was no response. Eventually, he received a reply that said in Andrew's telling, well, it's clear that you don't want to pursue this collaboration. Andrew was, he said to Conti, shocked. I remember feeling that was pretty aggressive, Andrew told Conti. It stands out to me as a pretty salient example of aggression. Yeah, that was pretty rude. So to me, said Huberman, that seems like an example of somebody who has a, well, strong aggressive drive, and when disappointed, lashes back or is passive. There's some way in which the person doesn't feel good enough, no matter what this person has achieved, so then there is a sense of the need and the right to over-control. Sure, said Huberman. And now we're going to work together, right? So I'm exerting significant control over you, right? And it may be that he's not aware of it. In this case, said Andrew, it was a she. This woman expressed Conti, based entirely on Andrew's description of 2 emails, had allowed her unhealthy excess aggression to be eclipsing the generative drive. She required that Andrew bowed down before her in the service of the ego because she did not feel good about herself. This conversation extends for an extraordinary 9 minutes, both men egging each other on, diagnosis after diagnosis, salient perhaps for reasons other than those the two identify. We learn that this person lacks gratitude, generative drive, and happiness. She suffers from envy, low pleasure drive, and general unhappiness. It would appear at a distance to be an elaborate fantasy of an insane woman built on a single behavior. At some point in time, a woman decided she did not want to work with a man who didn't show up. No, that was totally crazy, that response. Yeah, that's crazy. Like, if you don't show up for one thing, then you just go, I guess you don't want to work. No, I'm sorry, that's insane. There is an argument to be made that it does not matter how a helpful podcaster conducts himself outside of the studio. Thank you. A man unable to constrain his urges may still preach dopamine control to others. Morning sun remains salutary. Man, these guys need to put down the thesaurus. Just talk. Just write. The physiological between what? Oh, the physiological sigh employed by this writer many times in the writing of this essay continues to affect calm. Yeah, that's the thing. He has taught it and encouraged it. From what I understand, it engages your vagus nerve so that, you calm down. The large and growing distance between Andrew Huberman and the man he continues to be may not even matter to those who buy questionable products he has recommended, shady, and from which he will materially benefit, or listeners who imagined a man in a white coat at work in Palo Alto. You don't know that he's not doing that. He's not in Palo Alto. Yeah, whatever. The people who definitively find the space between fantasy and reality to be a problem are women who fell for a podcaster who professed deep, sustained concern for their personal growth. He might have still had concern for their personal growth. That doesn't mean that's a lie. That might not have been a lie. And who, in his skyrocketing influence, continued to project an image of earnest self-discovery. I believe he's still on that path. That doesn't mean that's a lie either. Nice try. It is here, in the false belief of the two minds in synchronicity and exploration, that deception leads to harm. They fear it will lead to more. They can fear all they want. That doesn't mean it's true. There's so much pain, says Sarah, her voice breaking, feeling we had made mistakes. We hadn't been enough. We hadn't been communicating. By making these women into the other, I hadn't really given space for their hurt and let it sink in with me that it was so similar to my own hurt. I see. That was Sarah talking. Sorry, these women make no sense to me. It's hard to read even what they say. 3 of the women on the group text met up in New York in February, and the group has only grown closer. On any given day, one of the 5 can go into an appointment and come back to 100 texts. Someone shared a Reddit thread in which a commenter claimed Huberman had a stable full of 304s, and another responded, "I hope he thinks of us more like Care Bears," at which point they assign themselves Care Bear names. Him, "You're the only girl I let come to my apartment." Read a meme someone shared. Under it was a yellow lab looking extremely skeptical. They regularly use Andrew's usual response to explicit photos. To comment on pictures of one another's pets. They are holding space for other women who might join. I'm sorry, I don't understand. That was... They're Care Bears? Okay. This group has radicalized me, Sarah tells me. There has been so much processing. They are planning a weekend together this summer. Oh my God. It could have been sad or bitter, says Eve. We didn't jump in as besties, but real friendships have been built. It has been, in a strange and unlikely way, quite a beautiful experience. Well, it sounds like they're forming a coven and getting together, telling each other how wonderful they all are, how they did nothing wrong, and how he's evil. And yet, there are exes that are still close with him, or think highly of him. I'm sorry, these women, and that's it. That's the hit piece. That's the hit piece. Sorry, I don't. Do I think people should lie? No. Do I think it was hurtful? Yes. Not criminal. His bosses and colleagues shouldn't know anything about it. People listening to his podcast, it's not relevant. Sorry. It just does not mean he's evil. It doesn't even, she tried to make it seem like, oh, he's a liar, therefore, I'm sorry, no, you're wrong. I can't even believe this was published. I don't know why I'm saying that. I need to stop being shocked. But we did get through it. So, all the men need to be careful. Some people, some MGTOW guys are still pumping and dumping, and these women are not safe. Not safe. You know, I mean, yeah, he cohabitated with one of them, but like, that's not why there was a problem. There's just a problem because they were lied to. And look what they're trying to do. They got published in New York Magazine. It's not safe. So, MGTOW monk for sure. MGTOW monk, passport bro. It's the only safe way to go. I didn't mean for that to rhyme. I rhyme when I'm tired for some reason. Oh yeah, I promised I'd show a little less, so let's see if we can. Hold on. Come here. Come here. Come here. You jump. Come here. She doesn't want to jump. Come here. Don't be shy. You